And yes, we are live. We are Friday live. And I'm Phil Crowshaw from the Geeky Group and Passions Project. And today I'm delighted to be joined by a guest who I've just been saying that she always gets embarrassed because I'm such a big fan. She's very well known for her brilliant knowledge in sales and business development, and everybody's always a big fan of hers. And she's the sort of person as well that always says it as it is. Now, I don't know if it's a northern thing, but the reality is that we like things that are a bit more authentic. And I think nowadays there's so much BS, isn't there? There is a lot of falseness around on so many different levels. You know, fake tans and filters on everything. I mean, actually, I've got a filter on at the moment. I've actually got a full head of hair, you know, a bit like Motorhead. Lemmy from Motorhead, a full head of hair, but I've got this filter on that makes me look like I've got skin on rather than hair. Right. Okay, look, it's hot and I'm losing the plot. Actually, that's a rhymes, isn't it? I didn't realize that. So what we're going to do then is we're going to start off with the intro, a Sting intro, which gives people a bit of a time to come in because they'll suddenly got this thing up on their phones or on their iPads or on their computers saying Phil Crowshaw's live, and so people just need a little bit of time sometimes to get themselves together. The millions and millions of people around the world who watch this show. And then I woke up. And anyway, let's do the live intro and then we'll introduce you to the one and only Hailey Caine. Okay, so a very warm welcome, a very, very warm welcome is definitely the cliche today, isn't it? This week, very warm welcome to Friday Live. It's been a really busy week, but a really fun week this week. And I always want to, wherever I can, I want to do work that's fun. Because life can be too short and all those cliches, but it's great when you can do work that's fun. And it's not always possible. Sometimes you have to deal with projects and things that are a little bit more, should we say, not as dynamic, shall we say. So anyway, this week, I've been started working with a client on helping them to set up a video and podcast channel. And I love those projects because it's a great, great way of engaging your staff, your employees. I don't know if you can call them staff and employees. You're not sure what you can call them anymore, do you? With this this sensitive world that we live in. So I've been doing that and I love that work. And it's a wonderful way to get everybody working together on a fun project. Some people you find when you do this, some people in the company have always wanted to be Holly Willoughby, or they've always wanted to be a Eamon Holmes or whatever, and they like to be on camera and all that stuff. And other people just like the tech side. They like to do the camera or they like to do the audio. But all in all, it's a great way to engage your people. And I love doing them. And then the other thing I've been up to, which I was just telling Hailey before we came on air, is that I'm starting a radio station that I may have mentioned once before, called the Journey Radio Experience. It's really, really exciting, and it's going to be lots of learning and development and lots of great music. I've done some pre-recordings, and that'll be launching and going live probably next week. guess another bucket list kind of tick, I suppose, as well, which is really, really good. And I've just asked Hailey and put her on the spot, and she's going to be on it too. So she's gone away now. She's going to be thinking about her five favorite most meaningful tracks that are going to help her to move on, or be motivated, or drive forward when things get tough, or whatever those meaningful tracks are. So it's a bit like, I suppose, Desert Island Discs in a weird kind of way for those of a certain age, but 2021 style. So again, it's about having fun and enjoying yourself, and that's what I like to do. So enough of me waffling on. I now need to get the star of the show in, and that's Hailey Caine. Hailey, hello. Very warm welcome to Friday Live.
Hello. Are you okay?
I am. I'm great. We were just saying, weren't we? It's been a bit baking this week, and it's been a bit difficult to breathe at times.
Definitely. Really, really hot. I've kept saying that Mrs. Doubtfire said, I'm melting like a snow cone in Phoenix. Oh, it's so hot.
Yeah. That is a good one. That is definitely a good one. Okay, so for those people that don't know who you are, for the very few people who maybe don't know who you are, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Okay, thanks, Phil. I love helping people to feel confident at selling when they start the business, because if you've not done it in your career before, none of us go into business saying, I'd love to be a salesperson selling my passion. We don't think that that's going to be a huge part of it. And actually, it's a full-time job at the beginning, and you start suddenly panicking as that sinks in. So I love making people feel better about that, believing they can do anything and be champion of the world. And yeah, love all that stuff. And it's just busting some myths that we all have about selling and sales. So yeah, that's what I do. I love it. Yeah. I've done it for 20 years. I've worked with some amazing companies. I've watched them grow over 20 years as well. So I help them when they get big too. So yeah, fantastic.
Well, I know you get embarrassed when I say it, but you are a legend in the Northwest in terms of your sales and business. You had it. I mean, I've got control over this show. Okay. I can even make you even more embarrassed with this. See, that's how many people are watching this show. Right, fantastic. So tell me, I would assume that a lot of people who start businesses, they start the business because they've got a technical knowledge of something.
Yeah.
And then they're in love with, and their passion is making that thing, producing that thing. At what point usually does it become a reality that maybe other people aren't as enthusiastic about it as they might be for themselves, for their own business?
I think it happens really early on, Phil. And we were only talking about this in a workshop the other day. And I had this lovely guy talking about it. He said, I'm outraged that nobody wants it. He said, I tell them all about it and then think, what the hell are you not buying it for? And I think you're just so passionate and love something so much that you can't actually believe that either one, you can't get it across, so you're frustrated with yourself, or two, you don't quite know what to say, so there's some squirmy silences. Or the third thing is we hate talking about money, don't we? We're just terrible in this country. And then the fourth, which makes it even harder, which people in Brazil, Peru, Latin countries and America have no problem in loving salespeople. They can't wait to get their hands on them to like nail the deal, sort it out, but we hate it. The second somebody approaches you with a bit of a sales face on, or you think it's a sales pitch, you're really mean to them. We're terrible in this country. So I think it's a combination of lots of different angles, or suddenly that there's a cold wind blowing through your bank account and you just suddenly think, I've got to do something about this. And you start looking for some ways to do it. And I think at first you try and sell to your family and friends, don't you? So they're totally dishonest with you. They never tell you how pants your product is and that you haven't got a cat in hell's chance. So I think it's just getting your thought processes in place so you can start to feel a bit better about it and getting a plan. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and of course, obviously, you've got to have that confidence as well, which is easy to say. I mean, you and I don't think it's unfair to say we're fairly confident. I know you might say you're not, but you are, you know, in a British kind of way. Is one of the other problems, though, is it the opposite, where you get a chance to talk about your product and you go, and then don't even take a breath for 20 minutes?
Absolutely. That's a brilliant observation, because I think I think it's a combination of being nervous. So you suddenly think you have to have this pitch, or you have at least have to have rehearsed something, because you're not going to be able to talk about it ad lib. I think the second thing is when we panic, we don't listen to people and we don't think about it being outward facing. So to me, if you get it clear in your mind that you're helping that person and exploring together that you're trying to see if your product or service can help. And if I concentrate on the product and service, I don't think about myself. So a lot of people have problems with, I can't sell myself. So if they've done sales, even in a previous career role that they've had, they often struggle to sell or can't sell when it's their own services they're selling. So I think you do panic and you do go into just talking about your product, when really it's about listening to that other person and seeing what they need. And you might not be right. Your product might not work for them. And it's about being really honest, isn't it? You know, you're great at that stuff. You're so good at questions, and that's what you've got to get good at. It's not selling, it's questioning.
Yeah, it's a strange thing. Reverse psychology fascinates me, Hailey. And I have been in situations where I've actually said, I don't think I'm right for you. What do you mean? What's wrong with me? Well, I just don't think I'm right for you. My instincts are telling me that I tend to say it as it is, or as I perceive it, not necessarily as it is, as I perceive it. And if you want somebody who's going to tell you what you want to hear, and I think you might be that sort of person, then I'm probably not right for you.
Yeah.
The weirdest thing is then all of a sudden then they go all out to prove that they are right for you. Which is
absolutely, it's balmy, isn't it?
It's weird, isn't it? Well, what's wrong with me? You know, what's wrong with me? Why am I not good enough for you? You know, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I mean, gosh, there's so many areas and so much to discuss around this topic. But
when did you get good at selling, Phil? When you had to do it in your business, how did you get good at it?
That is I'm not used to being asked questions, you know.
Am I not allowed to ask you questions?
Yeah, you absolutely are allowed, but you catch me on the hop. I don't know, isn't it? I think it was just a self-confidence thing. I mean, what I find with me, I know, you know, you get to a certain age, and I've got to that age now where self-awareness is very strong. I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not so good at, and blah, 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 blah. But I think that one of the things I've always done is I've always put heart and soul into learning and development myself. Throughout my whole career, I've been a book reader, a podcast listener, a YouTube watcher, an Audible listener, a Udemy course person.
Yeah.
To the point whereby I probably end up knowing more than I need to. But I suppose I've got almost like a paranoia. So I think you might have seen me talk on stage in the past. And when I'm talking on stage, I'm always convinced somebody's going to ask me a question that I don't know the answer to. So I kind of overcompensate a little bit. But as a result, I end up with a pretty deep knowledge. And I think when you've got a pretty deep knowledge and you get to the point whereby you feel that there's not many questions you could be asked in the area that you're an expert in that you couldn't answer, or you're confident enough to be able to say, I don't know the answer to that. I'm going to check that out, leave it with me, and not feel awkward or embarrassed or anything like that. But I can remember doing my first talk at a conference. This is absolutely true. Long time ago in my corporate career. And this is absolutely true. I was really, really nervous, very nervous. And I walked up to the podium. And as you probably recall, I'm only 5'5". So I walk up to this podium. There's 350 people in this room, and I can only just see over the flipping podium. Right? So in a moment of total and utter freak out fear, I pick up my briefcase. I put my briefcase on the floor, and I stand on my briefcase. Well, that just kind of relaxed everybody,
Yeah.
you know, and it was at that point then they thought, oh, he's not taking himself too seriously, which the Brits hate that, don't they? Overly cocky.
Yeah.
You know, so that kind of broke the ice, and it was plain sailing from that. But I think it's, in answer to your question, I'm going round the houses answering it, but I think it's just, I don't try and sell anything. I meet people, I talk to people, I chat with people, I interview people, and if something comes up then that's got some kind of resonance with them, I might talk about it. But I always go to networking events, and I'd be interested to get your view on this. My view on a networking event, other than the obvious, build a relationship with people, I don't think about selling at all.
Yeah.
But I always go with a view to finding a way to collaborate with somebody. So in other words, I don't go to try and sell my stuff.
Yeah.
I go to try and find a way to collaborate with somebody so I can get to know them better, and vice versa. So in my world, one way to do that, of course, is that if I find somebody that's interesting, I might say, would you like to be a guest on and do a guest interview with me?
Yeah.
I'm more than happy to do it. It'll help you out. I'm happy to give you the file. You know, I'm not going to charge you for the file. And then someone will say to me, what's the catch, or why are you doing this? And I'm honest, and I just say, well, this is my way of getting to know you in a subtle, relaxed way, informal way. So that's perhaps a long-winded answer to your question.
It's brilliant. No, honestly, Phil, everything you've covered there is absolutely spot on. Because I think when you go networking, the pressure at first is you think I've got to go to as many people as I can. I've got to try and tell them about me. I've got to practice this 60-second USP lift talk thingy. And I think it's not that at all. I just learned to really relax. And I still find it daunting. It doesn't matter how extroverted you are or how confident, still walking into a room does give me a flutter of a bit of social anxiety. And I just feel I always want to put people at ease. Perhaps it comes from being a real people pleaser or just really loving people. And I see people that look petrified like rabbit in headlights. And I just think, I wonder if I can help. And I do it in a couple of different ways so that it doesn't get tired. But a really good one is a really good tip is just try and think, I'm just going to try and help 2 people in here. I'm going to try and help one person. I'm going to talk to them and I'm going to ask them loads of questions. And if they don't need my services, perhaps they'll really help me by putting me in touch with somebody or remember me or start to build that relationship. So you're right. I think the more that you give to people and help them, people remember you for that. People remember how you make them feel, don't they? Like, I always remember how you make me feel, and so relaxed and so good and you're so lovely. And people don't forget, do they? And I think if you help with what your skill set is, how could anybody sort of resist that? It's a fantastic puppy dog sell, isn't it? Of how they can try you out, can't they? And have half an hour of your fantastic help that they can see and get benefit from. So I love doing that as well. But you're right about the reading. Every single really successful startup business owner that I've worked with is just a sponge of knowledge about constantly soaking up everything that they can, asking people, always pecking your head about, have you got a good book? What's the podcast you're listening to? It is getting embarrassing because I have so many books under my bed, on top of the wardrobe, on the windowsill, 9 bookcases downstairs. I do look a bit of an old sad old bookworm, but I'm going to have to stop. But yeah, I need a social life now. We're free, don't we? But yeah, I love reading. And you're always applying it and helping it with clients as well, aren't you? And transferring that knowledge. So
yeah, absolutely. And it's also patience as well, which is something, and I've talked about this on the show before and with clients all the time, is that it's very difficult when you're under pressure to get the sales in, when you're under pressure to pay the mortgage, when you're under pressure to get your business moving, and maybe there's a partner who's giving you the chance, 6 months, and then we need to talk about it if it's not working, and the pressure. But the reality, of course, is that there has to be an element of patience.
Yeah.
And I think what you said is absolutely true. And one of the great powers of content, using content in selling now, it used to be content marketing. I talk about it now in context of content selling, is that it's this whole thing about, and I've come across this myself, and you probably have, and you intimated it there a second ago, whereby in the January, when you have the meeting with, or you meet somebody at a networking event, they have absolutely no need for what you do. But then come the June, something happens, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know, that they move jobs. Or alternatively, if you're selling, I don't know, say telephone systems, the telephone system that they thought was fine, all of a sudden it blows up and the call center's in absolute chaos. And then at that point, it's who do they remember? And you kind of intimated it a minute ago, didn't you? Who do they remember who they could talk to? So where the MD says, you know, does anybody know anybody that is any good at this sort of thing? If you've been using content to keep in touch with people, like content with value in it, not selling hard sell, but content that's valuable, the chances is that they'll actually remember you when they need you, on the basis that there's a good chance they won't need you when you meet them.
Yeah, you're absolutely spot on with that. You shouldn't ever, it's really hard to come up for another word for it, because really it has negative connotations, does selling. We have really bad views of it, don't we? But I often say to people, if you were in a corporate and you were a buyer and you had a £5 million budget, you would see some of the top salespeople in the country who are so skilled at it that it's just this amazing relationship between two people and helping and sorting things out as quickly and as efficiently as if you work in the same company. That's the ultimate of sales, isn't it? But when we start, the only people that we've seen, you know, are perhaps salespeople who are trying to sell to us as consumers, and not being derogatory about certain industries, but we just see a certain type of sales approach, don't we? So I think if you get it in your mind that it's helping somebody and just getting to know that person, and you spot on about the patience bit, if you start to panic about, oh no, I've got to get some sales, oh no, I need some money, you've had it, people can smell it a mile away. We haven't evolved that much in 100,000 years, have we? They can smell the fear coming out of every pore and the desperation, no matter how good an actress or actor you are. So I think it's about making sure you finance those early days and be realistic about how long it takes you by. It can often take 5-6 months, depending on your service or your product, before you can sell something. You know, it's online, but it's certainly B2B sales, business to business, and where it's face to face, it does take a long time to start.
And there was a theory, wasn't there, once upon a time, and I don't know what the situation is now, but there was a theory that you had to have, is it between 7 and 9 meaningful connections with somebody before they're going to have the know, like, and trust enough to actually put their hand in the pocket, particularly, of course, if it's a bigger tag sale, more expensive sale.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think before, when you said about, I think if you get good at sales in your business and work really hard at it and have the right attitude, I think it is about really being interested in people. So I've said to more than one startup, you dislike people, you don't care how they tick, you can't bear to be in the company of boring people, and you think everybody's boring and horrible. I think you need to save up for a sales guy or go and borrow some money, because you're just never going to be able to do it. We could sit here for the next 3 years and you actually, it oozes out of every pore. It's body language, it's everything. So I've done that with quite a few people, because it's just, but most of us like people, don't we? You know, they're rare, about 10% of us. And I think if you like people and you're genuinely interested and you've thought your product through or your service and you think there's some sort of gap there, I think to build that relationship and ask questions, you've just got to give it time. Like you said, it's spot on. I mean, online really helps, doesn't it? You're the genius at online marketing and selling, and the way that you do it is so clever and so intelligent, and people need to copy that and study your stuff, because you're really, really good at it. It's just not pressured at all. It's just this gentle building of a relationship and trust, isn't it? And you're great at that, Phil.
I think you need to become my agent, Hailey.
It's a mutual admiration society. We're going to get booed off after this.
Speak to Hailey. She's my agent.
Yeah, I'll sell you.
She bigs me up all the time.
I'll sell you a deal. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I'd be interested to get your view on as well is that it strikes me that the number of people that don't follow up after meetings, network meetings, online and offline, and they don't follow up.
Yeah.
Is that my perception or is that a reality?
That's absolute reality, Phil. And I think you've got to find a tool to track that. And I don't say spend loads on CRMs or anything complex. I mean, I use a simple sheet, that rolling sales forecast, and it's just to keep a track on who should be on your radar, because it's so easy when you start and you're all excited and suddenly there's 20 people to follow up and then you can't remember what stage you're at with them, so you have to go back. So there's really simple things that you should do is how you organise even just your emails in your inbox and stuff as a very starting point, so that you always get back to people. I think as well along that, which is a really good point you've made, is if you start to try and map out your sales process, and I don't mean anything more complicated than a few post-it notes or just sitting there imagining what it would be like on the receiving end or trying it on a family or friend, is what's it like to be on the receiving end of that process that you're going to do, and can you make it easier for your potential customer? And it's that follow-up. You're absolutely right, that if you've seen somebody, you know, I had a fantastic woman and she went to 15 networks a week, and I said to her, that's physically impossible if you met 2 people at each one to follow up 30 people. She went, follow them up, what do you mean? And I said, well, you should be connecting with them on LinkedIn. You should be sending them a lovely email. You should have promised to send them something. You should have a next meeting where you can at least get together and collaborate and try and talk to each other. So I think it's about, at first, we can't get a grip of that sales activity and it suddenly becomes overwhelming sometimes, or that you're just trying too hard. And there's some simple steps. I always say, are you a burlesque dancer or a striptease artist? Because we just want to get naked straight away, and you can't run around like a mad nudist. You've got to do the reveal and the seduction, haven't you? It's like going in a nightclub and saying, get your coat, love, because we're going home and you're getting married next week. What? You didn't say that to him. You didn't say you want one of my products. Not when you just met him. So I think it's about, the other thing that you've really taught me is it's about not taking yourself seriously, and you've got to have a laugh, and coming home after a hard day selling in your business when you're ready to, and me and you have all had days like that, haven't we, and really bad ones, and nothing seems to go right, is that you laugh about it with other people, and sort of having your own group, whether that's a network group or a group of people, you know, that you've met in workshops or whatever. That's the really cool bit to me, that you need that group support and that moral support definitely to laugh about it, because then it suddenly doesn't seem to bad. There's a lot of psychology theory behind that, but it's really, really true. Laughing about things relieves it.
Yeah, no, that is absolutely true. One of the things that I teach my clients, which has always gone down really well, is that I always say to my clients, and I say this in some of the courses that I've run, is that if somebody's already got a supplier, particularly with B2B, is aim to become their second choice.
That's a great one, that.
And isn't it true, though, that the mindset tends to be, you don't need me, you don't want it, next.
Yeah.
But if you say to people, I appreciate you've already got a supplier, I don't want to insult you or waste my time or your time in trying to convince you to change suppliers, there's a reasonable chance that there'll be some kind of problem or mistake or cock up at some point. Do you mind if I'm your second choice?
Yeah, that's a
and very, very, very few people will say no.
Yeah, that's a fantastic one. You've just reminded me of another really good one as well. I call it, I keep making up silly terms for things because they're not in my marketing books that I read, but I call it crumbs off the table. So the first thing is a really good strategy when you're desperate and you're trying to convince your other half that you should carry on your business, even though you're both skint, you've had to sell the car and you can't go on holiday for 3 years.
Yeah.
You haven't broken that bit to them yet. But if you go to a large equivalent of yourself, who are a lot larger than you and a lot more established, and say, I think there'll be some crumbs on your table that you don't want to deal with them because they're too little. Please, could you pass them to me? And that is a great one. I've seen people have tons of success just trying that. And it's a nice way just to break yourself in gently. And they'll go, do you know what? We do always want to recommend people when, you know, we've grown fast, we've grown big, we've changed our strategy, we're dealing with bigger companies. We'd love to have somebody that we trust who did what we did 3 or 4 years ago. So, yeah, we'd love to give you some clients. So that can be a fantastic technique as well, yeah.
It's strange in Britain or the UK, the very idea of coaches seems to be uncomfortable or unusual or abnormal. You know, you think of coaches in sport and don't bat an eyelid.
No.
In America, you know, coaches, which are quite often life coaches or whatever.
Yeah.
But in the UK, a business coach seems to be something that just doesn't fit quite right with people. Is that something you've observed?
Absolutely. And I think that's why you've got to do that. Really try it and see, because if you can just ask a killer question to somebody. So I'll give you an example. I went to a networking do that was awful. It was so dry and bland and just dreadful and boring. And it was a talk as well on a panel. And there was a guy who looked so grumpy at the back that nobody had spoken to. And I went up to him and I said, you look really grumpy. Wait, you can't say that to me. I said, I can. I don't want you to be that grumpy. What's happened? I said, come on, we can have a laugh about something. Or, come on, tell me what your biggest headache is. And he went, tell you? I said, yeah, I'm an absolute expert in sorting headaches out. I'm the equivalent of a giant Anadin. And we laughed and talked about a bit. And he told me his headaches. And he said, would you come and talk to him for half an hour? And I said, of course I will. He went, will you? And I said, of course I will. And it's all confidential. And I bet you'll feel a lot better. Somebody else does it. It's miles easier. So I think if you can just be yourself and really authentic, I can only be giddy and silly, even in the most serious of moments. And it's just, you get better at just being yourself, don't you? Don't be anything else right from the start. Just be you, because that's what people love and they'll buy, won't they?
Yeah, of course. And it can be very, very difficult, can't it? Because I guess particularly with what you might call startup, the world of entrepreneurship and startup. Yeah. I mean, I always laugh, you know, nowadays it's so cool nowadays, isn't it? Yeah. With Mark Zuckerberg and Dragon's Den, and it's all very cool to be an entrepreneur. And, you know, when I left school, I could remember that it was anybody that was starting their own business couldn't get a job. You know, it was almost like, oh, he's not getting any O levels. He's started his own business, you know. And now all of a sudden it's so cool and everything, which I think can be a problem, because I think young people then have the dream of being the next Mark Zuckerberg. And as we all know, for every Mark Zuckerberg, there's a billion other people who are never going to be anywhere near that level of success.
Yeah.
Do you think is that a problem in terms of expectations and disappointment as a result of the speed of it not being quite, and what we said, the enthusiasm for this new idea that the granny has said it'll definitely be a world seller, as you intimated. Yeah. Do you think that's an issue?
I think that's 100% with every single every single person that I've ever helped or talked to. There isn't an exception in that you suddenly fall out of love with what you're doing and it becomes a really hard slog. And I think you have to go through a second gear where you really have to dig down deep down into somewhere, whether that's your resilience, your toughness. Yeah, I'm going to prove you wrong. I mean, mine was driven totally by, I am going to prove you damn wrong. I am going to do this. I'm never going back. Another big, I think it's finding your motivator as well is really interesting, Phil, because people are motivated by different stuff, aren't they? My biggest motivator in the early days was to absolutely never have to work for anybody ever again. That was my only driver. That fear, fear of having to get a job kept me going in the early days. And I didn't want to be chased around the office by the equivalent of Ben Hill, who used to chase me around in 1998.
Jeez, oh my God, really?
Yeah, but I got good at ducking and diving and hurdling. I could have won the Olympic hurdles for diving over a desk.
Shine a light. Well, I mean, all I can say is thank God things have changed. Actually, that's a point, actually. In terms of, you've been in and around sales quite some time. What key areas have you seen sales change in the last 20 or 30 years? How is it different?
That's a fantastic question. I think the biggest thing is along that theme that we've talked about authenticity, and people expect a lot of help and a lot of knowledge and a lot of content for free. So it was usually very, very mechanical in the way that you did your sales process, and the only way that you could reach people, so you'd make a telephone call, you'd try an appointment set, you'd send a brochure, you'd make 6 more phone calls till they gave in and begged for a submission, and then you'd go and see them, and then you'd get talking, or you'd take them out to an event or do something. I think the way that social media has evolved, it follows that line. People only want really authentic people. They can see through you if you're not. They really want you to help and provide lots of content free, because we've all been trained to expect knowledge on tap, haven't we? So they want your knowledge on tap. And I think we've all got more confident at demanding things. We've got terrible with customer service and complaining, haven't we? And we all expect everything Amazon delivered, don't we, the next day, even when it's a poor little company where it takes 3 days to hand make it. So, yeah, I think the biggest thing is expectations of people. We've got more savvy as consumers, I think, haven't we? And we've taken that from our personal life into the business world. People are quite tough, I think, when they're buying from. They don't give you any leeway because you're a startup, whereas at one time I think they would have done, definitely.
Yeah, I agree. And
it's changed.
Yeah, I agree. And there's so much, it's fascinating, really. The psychology fascinates me. Yeah. So somebody would think nothing if I let them to pick my brains for an hour about the digital media strategy, but they'd probably never dream of asking a solicitor.
Yes. Yeah, you're right.
And it's the same thing. You are buying the knowledge of the person and the years of all the books that you've read and all the thousands and thousands of hours of video you've watched and all the rest of it. So you know what you know. But it's a strange psychology thing for me that that people expect certain genres or certain sectors, or not they expect it, but they certainly don't necessarily expect you to be asking for money early on, whereas you wouldn't tend to expect that from a solicitor. You just go and see a solicitor, and yes, it's a whatever it is, 300 quid an hour, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely, totally agree with you.
It's a strange thing, that, isn't it?
I think it's as we've given more and more content away free, though, isn't it? Because it is the best way that people can decide if they, if you say one thing that resonates with somebody, they want to. I think the other thing is, I tell you what, I think we've got much better at listening. I think it's because we've talked about feelings a bit more. I was watching the Diana Years last night, and they said she got everybody to, open up about things and talk about emotions. I think people are much better about talking about things now. And if you listen to people, you can't do any more better service, I think, as a business coach or, in whatever service sector you're in to help people grow. If you listen to them, that has huge power for people. That just time to do that when we're so busy, because there just isn't time for people, is there?
No, that's right. And another area that strikes me as well is therapists. If you're a psychology therapist or counselor, whatever, again, you would, as soon as I'd need some bit of counselling to help me through my passing of my mother or whatever. Yes, of course, I can do that for you. I charge £100 an hour. Is there a particular time you want to do it? They don't expect that, or they don't see it in the same way if it's a business coaching thing, or if we let them, they don't. Yes. And one of the problems I have is because, and I suspect you can relate to this, because I get a kick out of helping people, and I get a kick out of the fact that I've given them some advice or guidance that's made a big difference.
Yeah.
I in the past, I used to allow myself to just keep going.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And the half an hour taster, the half an hour chat became 3 hours. And in the meantime, my kids are still walking around with dirty knees and no shoes,
Yeah, I've definitely done that. Still,
So
we all
I've
do
had
that
to,
when we start. Yeah, definitely. We all do
so
that.
I've just had to adapt that now. And I kind of say, honestly, yeah, I'll give you a bit if you want some pointers, tips, advice. If we can do it online, that's great, because then I'm not traveling anywhere. But if you want anything deeper than that, I will have to give you some kind of quote on moving forward. But I think in the early days, I think people struggle with having that conversation, especially in our arena of coaching and what have
you. It is, and you don't know what to say, do you? I mean, I did it. I got round it by setting up a calendar link and just saying to people, if you'd like a free sales review for half an hour, click on the link. So they know if they're going over half an hour, there's an expectation it has to be booked into the diary. And that keeps me on track. Even when I don't want to come off and I want to carry on, I'll say, look, we'll have to pull it to a close there. And if there's anything else that I can do, but it is really tricky at first, I think, the business coaching.
I love that idea. I'm taking that one. I'm nicking that one.
So if you half your sales process, you can double your sales. That's my good old cliche. And then the other thing is a really good one. I don't know what you think about this, but I always say people sell champagne for beer money. Doing a talk next week on it, and we fall into that trap so much. And I love pricing sensitivity. I became a real geek about it, did my dissertation in it, and just love how we treat price and how we think about price and the risks around it. And I think we all do it. So don't underprice yourself right from the start. It's like having a Bentley and saying, I'm going to flog it you for 20 grand because I've only just started making Bentleys. You just wouldn't, would you? So it's about valuing yourself as a brand and really thinking about what you're worth.
Yeah, God, I think that's so bang on and so worth people taking notice of that.
People think, though, don't they, Phil, that you start off cheap and you've got to get some experience before you can charge more. I disagree with that. I think you're there as the full package right from the start, and you've had the absolute massive guts to go on your own and do it. So you just get good at it really, really quick. And you can add loads of knowledge and loads of value. So why would you not value that? People worry if you're too cheap, as well, don't they?
I read a fascinating article a few weeks ago, Hailey, and I can't remember what it's called, but I read it. There's a something that's called something XYZ syndrome. I don't know what it was. I can't remember, which is bad, really, I was so impressed with it. But it's based on this psychological concept that if people get something free from you, the more that they get free from you, they actually get irritated when you ask for money. Not well, I don't really want to. They actually get irritated, physically, anxiously irritated, almost like, how very dare you ask me for money? And it's something in the brain that clicks in.
Yeah.
And you assume that the more you give away for free, the more they'll be impressed and the more they'll be grateful.
No, don't do it. Definitely not. I think there is 20% of people out there as well who could buy your services that deserve to be in a swamp, because they use and abuse new kids on the block on purpose. And I have a warning out there, and I'll say to them, they'll sniff you out, they'll find you out, and they'll bleed you dry. And you have to have some really good antennae and a radar to only give so much. And if they push those boundaries, really good people don't do that. And they just go through and churn through, picking everybody's brains for free. And I just think it's really crap behaviour, really.
Yeah.
Just need to be really aware of that when you start off, I think, definitely.
I don't know how I've managed it, but up until fairly recently, I'd never had a bad debt. And amazingly, and I used to think this, I'm old enough to know that, you don't know what's around the corner. You really don't. Things can be going great, and then things can turn to shit very quickly in different ways in life in general, But recently I did some coaching for somebody about 3 months ago, and I'm still chasing the debt. And you know what? It was an hour for about a couple of £100. And it's, oh yeah, I'll sort it out. And then of course you hear nothing. But I'm like a dog with a bone. 200 quid's not a lot in the greater scheme of things, but it's the principle of it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, it is. And I think it's like other things that you say. If you went to go and buy something, unless you had track record with them, you'd have to pay up front for it. Me and you couldn't go and order 15 caskets of beer and ask them to deliver it in a wagon. They'd go, well, you haven't got an account with us, so you do it. So I think you get braver about asking for money up front as well.
I've just had some web development work done for the new radio station I mentioned, and the guy just said to me, it's not much, it's about 70 quid or something, he's going to do something for me, and he said, that's 70 quid, I'll send you an invoice. And on the bottom of the invoice it just said, we won't start any work until the invoice is paid in full. And I just thought, that's fair enough.
Yeah,
he doesn't really know me, he knows of me and I know of him. But I didn't bat an eyelid, maybe because I'm in this game and I know that, it could be a risky thing for him to do. So
there's an interesting one as well. I don't know if you agree with this. If you say you're coaching or you're business advising, they don't want to pay it and they'd be horrified if you sent an invoice. But if you say you're delivering training, everybody pays training up front. So if the Chamber of Commerce send you an invoice and say, yes, we've booked your place on the training course, payment's due 14 days before the course starts. So I got round it a bit like that too, saying, look, I'm a training company. You come in on a training workshop, you come in for some training with me, then you can, I don't know what it is, but people pay for training up front. It's like you won't go to the hairdresser and ask for an haircut, would you? I wasn't having a go about your pun.
I can't believe that you used that. I know you, and I just know as you were saying it, you thought, "Oh, holy crap!"
Oh no, I'm digging myself in a hole now. I didn't mean to say it like that, but yeah, I'm sorry.
But you also know me well enough to know that I find it very, very funny, and it doesn't. But yeah, I can't help being virile. Anyway, that's another conversation altogether. But you're right. You're not joking about. You're absolutely right. But that's a smashing tip. That's a smashing tip. But it fascinates me. What fascinates me more than anything else is the psychology of it. Yeah. And now one word, you turn it into training, and suddenly it's normal.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so much is psychology. And I say this a lot with clients about marketing, but digital marketing, and so much of it is about psychology. And we've all got access to the same tools, haven't we? Yeah. We've all got access to, our phones. We've got access to our emails. We've got access to TikTok, blaming Snapchat, Facebook, whatever's going to come around the corner next. We've all got access to the same tools. The difference is in the creative. How creative are you in using those platforms to establish rapport? Yeah. What's your feeling about what seems to be an ever-growing increase in unsolicited LinkedIn sales messages?
Oh, I hate it. I immediately block them, cut them off. If I'm feeling really ratty and I've got 5 minutes, which is very rare, but I am slightly hormonal at the moment. So I just have to tell them. And you send this email going, I've just got to give you some feedback because this is my bag. And what you've just done to me, trying to sell me something, I don't even know you. It just is so wrong. Please, can I give you some feedback? This isn't a numbers game. And then they don't even respond to that. So you just think, oh, dearie me. Why would you do it? It's that stripper thing and the burlesque dancer again, isn't it?
It is, but you're like me, and most people, when I mention it on the webinars, most people, when I say it, most people go like we did then. Oh God, don't, yeah. Why
are you doing it?
Why do people? And the classic I've seen recently, where they're using more automation, is they'll say, I was checking you out in your passions project, open brackets, a geeky company, close brackets. So they've obviously just lifted it off the flaming LinkedIn description. Oh. And it's like, oh, for crying out loud.
You've just got to try a bit better than that, haven't you? Really, you have.
Yeah, absolutely.
It isn't a numbers game. It's a really good point, that, Phil. It isn't a numbers game. It's meaningful connections of helping people. Definitely. On whatever platform.
The most impressed I've ever been is a few people have sent me a message and said, I see you do a lot of video interviews with people. I have an expertise. I'd love to be a guest on one of your shows. I don't know how I go about it, but please consider me if if you'd be interested in interviewing me. More than happy to have a quick chat. Hope you have a great day, Dave, Gene, whatever. And that's brilliant, because it means that they've been asked to even just at least see that I kind of do a lot of interviews, and I'm so in respect of that.
Yeah.
Because then it's a win-win, because I get content, and they get to talk to me and get to know me, and off you go on the journey of life.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that to me is very, very, it's simple, but that breaks through that stupidity to me.
Well, it's even worse when you get a connection request and there's nothing there. It's like opening your front door at trick or treat, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thinking, why would you just connect with me? For what? Who are you?
Yeah.
It's just, it doesn't work, does it really at all? It's
and then of course there's the I've got 47,000 LinkedIn connections. And
that's not good, is it?
I've got 27,000 fleas living under my bed, but it's not that big a deal.
Absolutely. I think the thing is, do you not think we really love being humble as well? The great British that we don't like showing off, do we? We don't like overt behaviour and the big I am. We just don't like people that do that, do we? We're very self-deprecating, aren't we? And very humble. So if you get people who are like that, it's much easier to work with them, isn't it? And
it is. The best description I ever heard was, if you have your own business, particularly in where you're helping people type business, you have to live in a small village just south of Arrogant.
That's a fantastic one. I'm nicking that, Phil. I'm not giving you credit for that.
You can nick it, Hailey, because I nicked it off somebody as well.
That's a good one.
Years ago. And I think it's absolutely fantastic, because it's true, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. If you ever stop being humble, it's time you give up, isn't it? Definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. Because if you hit the arrogant level, you've had it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you hide your experience and your service and everything under a bushel and all that, and all that stuff that goes in your head when you're younger, which I'm sure you call it chattering monkeys?
Yes, chattering monkeys.
I've seen some stuff that you did on chattering monkeys.
Yeah.
That little voice in the head, and saying you're not good enough, and and all those things we use. One of the classics I always had at school, which I remember very, very clearly, is Philip would be a lot better at school if he stopped showing off to his friends. Now that'll shock you hearing that, I'm sure. But you have to overcome that little voice. So when you're doing live shows and you're doing radio stations and you're doing video interviews, you have to keep reminding yourself, shut up, because that little voice is still there.
Yeah.
And you made the point a minute ago, and it's very true, that it never goes away. Because some people say to me, how do I get rid of it? And I say, you don't.
You don't want to either, do you? Because it keeps you sharp, doesn't it? And keeps you humble.
Yeah. And I feel that every time I go on stage and on a show, on an event. Do you know what's amazing about this talking to you today is that 53 minutes in, and we've not mentioned the pandemic once.
No, we haven't. Yay.
Apart from me just mentioning it.
So done it now. That's no good. I'm sorry, I've waffled on you. You'd never get me off. This is going to be about 6 hours.
No. But that's why when you email me and I said, what prep do I need to do? And I just said nothing. Because I knew what it'd be like. But that's the thing about everything we've talked about. What I think is fascinating is everything we've talked about is relevant with a pandemic or no pandemic.
Yes, it is.
It's not like, well, as a result of the pandemic, we need to be doing this, and this differently.
Yeah.
These are just common sense tips and strategies that you've just got to do. You've got to find a way to get through that lack of confidence and that self-belief thing. And it's very hard for some people, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, absolutely. And I think it's about how you're brought up. You can tell people that have never had praise off the mum and dad, because that's where it starts from, isn't it? So you've got to unpack a bit of that suitcase stuff and just really think about working. People have to work on all sorts of different things, because what it does, I think, when you start your business and you have to sell, whatever else you do in your business, selling, you're stripped bare. There's nowhere to hide. That's why it's so scary, I think, because you're just so much under pressure in the early days. But really, all it is, if you relax and you're just yourself and you know yourself well, you said it before and nailed it when you said about self-awareness. The more self-aware you are, the more you understand people, the easier that your sales gets, definitely. If that's only one thing that you leave with, be really self-aware. I still haven't found a better book. I'd love to know if you have, because I know you love reading. Better than Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. For a beginner, understanding how people tick, I still can't find anything that compares to that is simply broken down for a technique that you can use each day that you're sort of building on and doing it. There's some amazing stuff in there.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, my wife is a massive fan of Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway with Susan Jeffers. Years and years old, but still as relevant as ever.
It is, absolutely. It's brilliant. And it is about fear. It's all based on that when you're worried about your sales and things. Worried about money, you're worried about rejection, failure, not liking yourself, not liking people that you agree to work with. The other thing as well, Phil, one last really quick one is, be careful who you sell to, because you're a bit of a tart at the beginning, aren't you? Somebody says, come and see me. At the
beginning, I still am.
Well, I am too, but what can I say? I was trying to look all good. But I think you've got to be really careful, because in a sales call or a sales, whatever you're doing to have that conversation, you're also sifting that other person, because you look well if you sell something to them and you're going to see them or talk to them most weeks for 12 months and you can't stand the sight of them. So people buy people they like, don't they? So you've got to like who you sell to, I think, as well. Have you found that?
Oh, 100%. And like who you work with.
Yeah.
And I mentioned at the start of, just at the very start of the show, about where at all possible, I do do everything I can to enjoy the work that I'm doing. And I know categorically, look back to my corporate days on big company cars and silly money and all the rest of it. But I know for a fact I leave money on the table because I'm choosy about doing things that I enjoy. And sometimes it might be a startup. There's a lady I love working with who's based in Scarborough, actually. And I love working with her, and she's not got a lot of money. I charge her a lot less than I normally do, but I enjoy working with her. She's very open to it. She's taken on board the advice. She's doing some amazing stuff now on Instagram, and she's getting loads of responses and engagement. And she's had requests to be on a radio show in Australia, and she can't believe what's happened. And I just love that sort of work where she's open to it. She takes the advice and takes the action, and she's a joy to deal with.
Yeah.
But she pays a lot less than I would normally be charging. But I don't mind anymore, because that's more important to me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think as well, what do you think about when you've chased money or had a definite sales target, or where you've absolutely said, I've got to do this and I've got to hit this? To me, that's never worked when I've done that. If you relax into it, it follows, the money comes, doesn't it? And that relates to big businesses I've worked with too. The second that you relax down into it, but it's a bit hard to explain, isn't it? It's like when you see an Olympic athlete and they go into that flow moment, isn't it? Just before they're about to go, and you can see they're fully focused. But there isn't pressure. They're not all hunched up and worried. They're in that amazing zone, aren't they? And I think you get to feel that more and more as you get more authentic and choose to who you're going to work with and relax.
Yeah.
A bit.
Yeah, you do. I think it's a lot more tricky when you're working in what you might call telesales is a crap word, but telemarketing, telephone related contact centers, where you've got somebody, if it's a bigger company, of course, if it's somebody on high, maybe the finance director is, especially in the current climate, kicking off about, if we don't get this number by the end of the year, we're going to have to be letting 30% of the workforce go. And here's the harsh reality behind everything, is that the spreadsheet rules the world.
It does.
And it's unfortunate, but it's true.
It wouldn't be. It wouldn't be if men hadn't decided to rule the world 150 years ago and got all big boy about it and capitalist. If you'd have left the matriarchal society to do it and all gentle and spiritual stuff, we'd have been all okay now.
I can't believe you've taken all this time to suddenly start burning your bra on air. For God's sake.
Now, you know you want me to. That's extra. You have to come on my other channel for
Yeah.
that.
Hey, listen, Hailey, fill your boots because we need to go viral.
Right. You will go viral if I get my bra off, definitely. Do you know what, as well, that we've just done a fantastic demonstration of? If you use humour with your clients, they love you. Because everybody is so serious and so worried about lots of things and all that we've all gone through as a society and community. And it's always tough in business, no matter what we say. It is tough times, isn't it? Sometimes, if you have humour, it is just such a gift you can give with people and make them laugh, can't you?
But have you ever been in a situation, because sense of humour is very personal, isn't it?
Yeah, it
and
is.
Some things that make me, I suspect similar things that you make me and you love would be the same, that make us laugh is the same. I don't know, but then sometimes you'll say something that you find really quite amusing, and the person you've said it to is looking at you as if you've just like come out from under a stone. and you kind of know then that's the first sign that, you know, I always say that people are either, you know, they sometimes go like that.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like that. And there's nothing you're going to do to basically go like that.
You have to get out there with a bit of pride intact and get out the room as quickly.
Yeah. You know, and I'm like, you know, I'm kind of like, yeah. You know, it's great. And, you know, quite, you know, not overly extrovert, but kind of out there a little bit, you know, and let's do enthusiastic, I suppose I would use. And some people are just like looking at you as if to say, this guy's on something, you know, and I don't think I'm over the top, you know, and it's not their fault. It's just that you kind of just feel as if no matter what you say, you'll not connect, or as you perceive it, you're not connecting.
Yeah.
And I guess
that's why it's good if you have a half an hour taster and not a 3 hour taster, because you can get out there, can't you? If it's really
that's right. That's absolutely right. And it's true what you said. And I've been thinking about Calendly, easy for me to say, Calendly recently. And now you've just motivated me to get me backside into gear, and I'll get that set up, because I think that's a really, really good idea. Hailey,
yes.
That's an hour that's gone in about 5 seconds in my head. I don't know about yours.
For me too. I'm sorry I talk so long. You're just so good. I could stay on.
This is why I want you on. You know, a live stream show doesn't work very well if me and you are just staring at each other going, hot in it. Yeah.
Oh, thanks, Phil. You're so kind and generous. You're just so great.
No, I just saying it how it is. Just like, as I said to you before, I'm not saying it to blow smoke up your arse, as they say in the north. It's just the truth. That's all. And I'm really looking forward to getting you on the radio show. So get thinking about your 5 tracks that inspire or motivate you, and then we'll get you on the radio show as well. There's no escape from my microphone.
Brilliant. I can't wait. I'd like to book 4 slots, please.
Well, yeah, people have already said to me, actually, they said, oh, I managed to do it and I've got 5 tracks, but I've got 37 others that I'd like to include. No, it's 5. Well, can I come on again and do another 10? No. Well, maybe, but not yet.
Not the week after. Oh, thanks, Phil, so much. If I can do anything to help you as well, give us a shout.
Yeah, absolutely, I will do. So thanks so much. Thanks very much for joining me today on Friday Live, Hailey. It's been a wonderful experience, as always. Great. And I'll definitely see you in person, hopefully now, not too long before we can all get together and actually talk and banter in person. Should be very nice. Have a great weekend. It's cooling off, thank God, and hopefully we can all kind of cool off a little bit. And I'm now going off to get a toupee, because you've taken the piss out of me. So
I've got a client who's a toupee maker. Can I just tell you one thing really quickly?
Yeah.
She makes wigs 3 lengths, so that you take them away and it looks like your hair's growing and that you've been for an haircut. So you put the short one on, then you put the middle one on, then you put the long one on, then you put your short one on, and people go, have you had an haircut? How clever is that?
As a guy that's from and lives in Manchester, I would never survive from my so-called mates and friends if I wore anything
No, you wouldn't.
like that.
Definitely don't. I love you.
I would be killed. I would be.
Love you, Sean. No, I was just talking about toupee theory of how
I know, I'm joking.
really
I'm
cool.
joking.
I wasn't
I'm
telling
joking.
you to. Oh,
Yeah, no, I'm joking. I'm joking.
People
People say now, when I sometimes show pictures of me with hair back in the day, and people say, "You don't look right with hair," because they're so used to seeing me without it. So,
yeah.
take care, Hailey.
Yeah, you too. Thanks,
Wonderful
Phil.
to see you, and thank you for your time.
Yeah.
See you soon. Bye bye. Bye bye.